we're here to protect you and the ones that you love. It's a good feeling to know that our efforts aren't going unnoticed.
It actually brought tears to my eyes to know that we have this support.
You're welcome. I must just say you're welcome. It's stressful, but we're not going anywhere.
Welcome to another edition of Bucknell Women's Soccer Through the Decades. And this session is going to be a really special session as we will hear how Bucknell's soccer program took the giant steps from a club program to a Division I varsity program. And the women on the call tonight all had a huge part in that and were either on the first varsity team or on the club team that helped get women's soccer to the varsity level. We're excited about that. My name's Todd Newcomb. I want to thank Geisinger for sponsoring tonight's session. Geisinger is doing a great job for the community, and we're really appreciative of everything they do for Bucknell Athletics as well as everybody in the Lewisburg and surrounding communities. Coach Kelly Cook, our head coach, is with us as well as one of our student athletes. I'll start by introducing Sarah. Sarah Hazard is a senior midfielder from Flemington, New Jersey, and we're really appreciative to have Sarah on tonight. And then our alums from the class of 1988. I am very biased to that class, by the way. CA from the class of 88. From the class of 1990, Steffi Hartwell. From the class of 1991, Christina, I'm going to give your maiden name so people recognize from when they saw you, Christina Baselga. And by the way, Christina has the honor of being the very first Patriot League Scholar Athlete of the Year in women's soccer. When Bucknell played the first year, she won that honor. So congratulations to her. And then our final guest, also from the class of 1991, is Kyra Jacobs. So, Coach, I think this is going to be a great session. I'm going to turn it over to you, and we'll get it going.
First off, I just want to start out and welcome you guys and also just give you guys a huge thank you ahead of time here. I'm really looking forward to this call. I've had the opportunity to speak with a few of you this past fall when we held our 30-year celebration and got to hear some of the stories. And to be honest, those stories have been talked about quite a few times already from our current players and even on some of the alumni calls I've had earlier this week, just about this incredible journey you guys were a part of and how grateful and thankful our current players and the players that played after are of all the work that you guys put in. And so I am very excited for this call and can't wait to dive deeper into how Bucknell soccer came to be. To make things simple, we'll just, for answers, we'll just go in the order you were introduced. And that way we can keep it flowing. So first question, take us back to the beginning and how you decided Bucknell was where you wanted to be. So CA, if you want to kick us off here.
You got it. So I guess I'll try to keep it short. But I loved Bucknell as soon as I saw it. Loved the campus. Its only drawback was that it didn't have a major in architecture, which is what I thought I wanted to do. And so I sort of put it to the side and then applied to a number of schools that did and just still had it kind of knocking on my door. And somehow right at the end of the year, there used to be a January 1st deadline for applications. I went into the hospital with something and had right before that said, oh my gosh, I really want to do this application to Bucknell. So it was postmarked, I believe, on the 2nd. And it went out to Bucknell and they sent it back. They didn't open it because it didn't make the deadline. So I had written to Bucknell and said, this was my situation. I really do believe this is my dream school. I wasn't applying early or anything. I just wanted to be in the pool for the spring. And somehow they opened it and I was accepted and felt I was unbelievably lucky for that moment. And I remember I was at some awards dinner or something my senior year, and I can't remember. It was someone who handled, I guess, some of the admissions, who commented, he knew my name and said, I know you, like, you're the one that I said. And I just couldn't believe how grateful and how lucky I was to be able to attend Bucknell, because it truly was my dream school. And I'm not an architect, and that's totally fine.
So I was a scholarship kid, and I was told by my mother that I was paying for all my applications to colleges and universities. She did take me around junior year of high school. It was a really fun road trip all over these places to look at schools. And I won't name names, but I went to about 9 schools and I had my list, and I decided to apply to Bucknell early, and I got in. And that's the only place I applied to. And I loved it. I had a great experience there.
I had an interesting way to get there. My brother is 2 years older, had applied to Bucknell, and our family's from Spain, so we didn't have very much knowledge about the college experience here in America. I was born here in America, and so was my brother, but my parents were from Spain. So when I was selecting my colleges to choose from, I picked 6 schools, and my top one was an Ivy League. And just before a spring break trip to Europe, I found out I didn't get in. And so I was left with the choices that, like, the day after we got back from spring break, you had to decide. So when I got back, or actually on the trip, I'm speaking with my basketball coach, was one of our preceptors. He was on the trip, and he sat me down. "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I'll go to Hopkins. You know, it's a good school." And he said, "You don't love it?" And I said, "Not really." And he said, "Have you looked at Bucknell?" And I said, "No." And he said, "You need to go see Bucknell." And so sure enough, I get back from our spring break trip on a Sunday, and I told my mom and dad, I'm like, "Mr. C says I need to see Bucknell." And they're like, "All right." So road trip Monday, and we get in the car, we go see Franklin and Marshall. Nice, you know, we drive over the hill, and coming from the south on 15, and you look to the right and you see the football field, and then you pull in and you drive up and you see the quad and all these people playing frisbee and sitting around and crisscrossing paths. And I was like, that was it. I was like, this is my school. This is where I want to come. My mom's like, "You haven't even toured it." And I'm like, "This is it. I know it." So we did the tour, and I handed in my acceptance right there and then, and never regretted it. It was the best choice I ever made.
Hi, it's Kyra Jacobs from Boston, and I was going to follow up with what X said and said, lucky me, because X became my teammate. So I'm so lucky that she ended up at Bucknell with me that fall of 1987. And the reason I ended up at Bucknell, also a circuitous path, I applied to 10 schools, and I have 3 siblings, all of whom are engineers, and 2 of them are older than me. So my mother had been out to Lewisburg with both of them and fell in love with it herself. So she said, "Somebody has to go to Bucknell. I hope it's you." And my dream school was Duke. And I applied early decision to Duke. I applied regular decision. I didn't get in either time. And I had to choose between Vanderbilt and Bucknell. And I was at an all-girls boarding school. And the thought of having to get dressed up and wear a party dress to go to a football game at Vanderbilt, which, as you know, is not the case at Bucknell, was part of my decision-making. I just couldn't believe how formal Vanderbilt in Nashville was. So mine was a little bit by default. I did love Bucknell, and it's been an incredible part of my life being a Bucknellian, and I never looked back once I made my decision. But ironically, for the students out there, the student athletes, I just want to say, you never know where life is going to take you, because I ended up getting into Duke from my dream grad school. So things happen for a reason. Thank you.
Great, thank you guys. Just kind of talking specifically now about soccer. What was the situation at Bucknell in terms of the soccer experience? And was the club program already in existence when you arrived on campus? And what was it like?
So it was in existence. I have to admit, because it was club, I had wanted to, I was just really captivated by trying something different. And so I rode crew actually my first year there, and just missed soccer way too much. I mean, I really enjoyed the crew team. Probably didn't enjoy the 4:30 a.m. stuff that much, but did enjoy it. So then I went back to soccer the next year, and yeah, it was sort of just kind of moving along, but not really with a lot of form around it. And so when I was a sophomore, a woman, Nina Kiernick, was actually the class behind me. and she had joined, and we sort of started trying to put some shape around it in finding some guys that would coach us, and connecting with the dining hall. I'm trying to remember his name. Todd, you might remember his name. My God, what was his name? I'd know it if I heard it.
The guy with the curly hair who made all our food?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he was our preceptor, right? Yeah.
Yes.
He was there forever.
Tim Tennant?
What is it?
Was it Tim Tennant?
Doesn't sound right. So anyway, he was our faculty advisor. And basically what he did was we came back that next year, we came back early and had sort of a preseason. And he arranged for us to, don't tell the board of directors or the president, I guess those folks are long gone from that time. But basically we just kind of came in the side door and he served us food. So we were fed for those 2 weeks when we wouldn't have otherwise been, because we didn't really have a reason to be on campus and we didn't have much of a budget. And so we tried to save that for, gas for the vans and trying to buy some semblance of a uniform. And so free food was amazing. So this guy was great. He was just the best. He could not have been more supportive in trying to get this off the ground. So he was terrific.
So when I came, the club had great shape because of CA. I was so thrilled she was going to be on this call because she was an absolute hero. She was a junior when I started to play. And I loved lacrosse. I loved all sorts of sports. I played ice hockey in high school and played soccer, but soccer was my family sport. My father was a soccer coach and athletic director. And so I just felt like I had to, do it for the family if I'm going to do something. And I remember walking out with the freshman women that were going to be playing to try. We didn't know. It was like tryouts for a club. We didn't know what we were walking into. And Amy Fouth was like either 4 feet in front of me or 4 feet behind me. And she's the most hysterical person. And she was just had this whole dialogue going like, what are we walking into? This could suck. And then we got there. We were so scared. It was like the real deal. But it also got us because we all played soccer at a serious level. And we're like, this isn't bad. Like they have it together. And sure enough, the next year when we came back, they took us to 2 weeks of preseason. I've never been so sore in my life. We had to run around a flipping lake. I didn't do anything all summer. And I was like, and I couldn't walk, triple sessions. But it was a great experience. CA was a kind leader. I remember a few other people like Nina and, just playing with them. They got our uniforms. They got the van. They taught us how it was done. And then my junior year, I guess my sophomore year, I was elected captain for my junior year. And I thought that was cool until I realized all I had to do. And then it was like, you need to order the uniforms. You need to get the food. You need to get the vans. You need to do the schedule. You have to call athletic departments and do the schedule. And we like to play a 10-game schedule. I'm like, what did I get myself into? But you had plenty of time in college, so you figure yourself around. It was a great club. You did a great job, CA. Thank you so much.
Thank you. No, it was.
And we had fun too.
We did. We had a very good time.
I have to ditto that. When I got there, it was so organized that it was really nice. Kyra, I missed our freshman tryout because my summer job, I had committed through, I don't know, whatever, if it was Memorial Day or whatever it was, Labor Day. But anyway, and my parents, again, being from Spain, didn't understand the whole varsity sport thing or club sport thing. So they were kind of discouraging me from getting too involved and, making sure my grades stayed up and things like that. So I kind of had to do it on the sly. So I couldn't be like, well, I need to go back to school like a week early because there's these tryouts. So so I missed like these triple sessions, which was probably a good thing for me personally. But when I arrived then, it was my RA. Actually, I got a letter in the summertime from the coaches and from the captains saying there's a club team and this is, you put soccer as an interest on your application. And so just reaching out. So I knew about the team and I was like, well, I'm gonna call when I get there. And then I didn't know where to call. My RA, turns out, was best friends with our two coaches at the time, Eric and Mike. He was one of the other, I don't know what their connection was, but anyway, they were good friends. And he's like, oh, I know the coaches, I'll call them. And I guess he got me a pass to get out there to the end of the tryouts, and I was able to get out there. But yeah, it was really well organized. We had uniforms, as you say, and we had student coaches that were so committed. I mean, we had real 2-hour practices every day. and a full schedule, as you said, Steph. So it was impressive and so fun, so fun. Yeah.
So Steffi and CA, you can back me up on this, but I don't recall the tryouts during triple sessions during that 2-week period, but maybe it's because I've just blocked everything out. But maybe the tryouts is a loose term, because I think it was, if you showed up and you had played soccer in high school and were committed enough to commit to 2 weeks of the most grueling triple sessions. I mean, we put the football players to shame, because we were out there in the morning at the stadium, running up and down those stairs. I did an email with the ladies before this call. I mean, running around the cornfield out by the mods and the golf course it felt like hours. And I was not in as good of shape as any of them. And I won't name names, but some of you were smokers, and you still crushed me out there in those runs. So it was grueling, but just so rewarding. And I remember just thinking, I want to be a part of this. And no matter how hard it is, I will do whatever it takes, because it was really amazing. And I don't know who was with me at the beginning. I believe there were 5 of us that started my freshman year that made it all the way through, including X and Dana Essie and Amy Kraus and
Kathy Ott.
And Kathy Ott, yes. I remember Kristen Kennedy and others, but I just loved being a part of our amazing group of women that made my entry to Bucknell just so unique. And, fourth, vet, or west, or bust, we just, you just felt like a part of the school before anybody else got there. It was incredible.
Yeah, I was a smoker, but no longer a smoker, and still a runner because of that experience.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, well, I'm going to, Sarah has some questions, and so she's going to hop in here and ask you guys one of her questions.
Yeah, so it's actually really funny, just to add in something. It's so funny that you guys are saying, like, you don't really remember preseason or whatever, because whenever we're in the middle of camp, like, obviously it's tough, and then afterwards we don't remember the past 2 weeks. And every time when we come in, I'm going to be a senior, so every time we come in and we can't even remember last preseason. So I don't know, maybe it's a common theme, we tend to block it out. But anyways, so my question is, what were some of your most memorable experiences as part of the Bucknell's soccer club?
I can probably name 3, and it'll be interesting to see if they're similar to what others might say. My first one was Christina becoming X. Like, that has been a lifelong, she's in my phone as X. I have never called her Christina. Like, I have to think about it before I actually try to address her by her full name. So that was one, and that was because she played wing. And, you had to get the ball out there pretty quickly, because she was just like, just down the side of the field. The problem was you couldn't get Christina out in a quick enough time frame. So we just said, that is just too long. That's too much. Or just calling for her to pass you the ball. It's just too long a name. So we're like, that's it. It's just X. And it stuck. So that's one. My second was beating Penn State. That was like a tremendous moment. And I think the third was, this other one just sticks out in my head. It's just one of those things that, it's a crystal clear memory of Heidi Knepp, the goalie, who was at one end of the field by herself while we were at practice. And she's like skipping around in this little puddle singing, "One is the loneliest number that you'll," right? I was just, what? So she's back there. She's like, "It's boring back here. No one's around." Because it's like, "Heidi, what are you doing?" So those were just a couple of those moments. But I think the Penn State and the X probably right on up there. And then Heidi just steps out to me as, she was hilarious. She didn't really play goalie, but we needed a goalie, and she could catch a ball. So there she was. She turned out to be pretty good, actually. Fearless.
Mine probably aren't as happy memories. I think I'm not quite sure where we were, but maybe Alfred. We were out on one of those road trips in the van, and we were winning and we were losing by 1. And I'm kind of short and small, and I was playing against somebody much bigger than me, and she kept punching me in the back. And I finally just turned around, and she was way tall, and I punched her real hard in the chest, and I got a red card. And so I wander up the field. I'm captain of the team, and I'm like, I've never done anything like this in my life. She just kept punching me in the back. And I don't like it when people hit me. And the coach calls a timeout, and I got this red card. He goes, I want every last one of you. And it was a guy who coached with Johnny Lang. He goes, you should all be getting red cards. Like, this is ridiculous what's going on out here. And it made me feel so much better because I was so embarrassed. The next was, by the time I was a senior, all my friends had left the team. They went abroad. They were seniors and they had other things, and I was still captain. And I didn't play as much. I got recruited under, and the coaches were super nice. We'd get things like, it's a penalty shot. Let Steffi do it. Like, I was like the team Rudy. And, I get my big call to come out for the penalty shot. It goes right over the net. So it's like, but one of the best things I loved about the team is I lived with 10 girls down on 5th Street, and about half of us played and half of us didn't. And at the end, I was the only one who played. And I would come home from weekend games, and they would always throw a party. And it was just, they were so proud of us that we were doing something, and they believed in it. And they were very proud that the sport was going to go varsity. They were really, really proud of that.
Yeah, so a lot of those memories are actually reminding me of so many other good ones. So it's really hard to say. But yeah, I do remember that Penn State game is one of the highlights of our career there. That was tremendous. We just felt so good about that. But we always had a winning schedule, and we were always playing really well in high quality teams and competitions. So I think kudos to like you captains that started it, because you really paved the way. But I remember besides those, now that you guys have said a few of the ones I liked, but I ended up being an RA for junior and senior year. So I was gonna get a freshman hall, and then it turns out a bunch of my friends had terrible room picks. So I found them in the terrace room one day talking, and they're like trying to figure out how one of a classmate above, a year ahead of us, could get a mod and try to pull in some people. And I said, what's going on? They're, this, that, and the other. And I said, well, they're actually looking for RAs in the mod. They can't get any. What if I try to get one, and we can try to get both sides? And they're like, oh, great, let's do it. So I went into, was it Ed Dedez? I can't remember the residency director, but anyway, I went in and I said, could I take a mod? And he's like, absolutely. I'm like, but I have some stipulations. I want mod 27 that's right on the soccer field, and I want both sides. And he's like, whatever you want. We can't get anyone out there. So we ended up having the mod that was like the bathroom then for the team, because we practiced on the field that's now softball, I think, right? That was our soccer field. So now we had a house there. We had bathrooms. 2 of us were players, not, 6 were not, but they didn't care. They loved it. And so a lot of my memories have us coming and going in and out of there, in all states of mud. But one of my other favorites was a situation where I was not supposed to be playing soccer. Remember how I said that? And we had a tournament, and this is how my parents found out that I was playing soccer. So we ended up deciding, you guys had scheduled a really good tournament on a weekend. It was kind of rainy. And my parents had decided to come up and visit that weekend. And we started that tournament with like the bison chips out there singing the national anthem. And then we had a huge crowd actually of people for those games. And I remember us playing really well, and it was rainy, and I think we had 2 back-to-back games, and we played super well. Everybody was shining. And my parents were kind of like, okay, this is okay. You can play this. And I remember being so proud of being part of something that was gonna be not only fun for me, but that was acceptable and gonna be part of my career there. So it really stuck to me that I owed this team a lot for the rest of my 3.5 years there afterwards.
Thank you, X. So just a sidebar, was his name Tony, the guy in the dining center?
Oh, that definitely sounds
Tony?
better. Tony, you
Could have been.
That's what came to mind. So to echo what X said, I feel that the mods were definitely a part of my soccer experience. So I won't repeat all that, but I also lived in a mod my sophomore year. I lived with 2 seniors and another sophomore. So that was great. As X said, you cannot comprehend what we were dealing with because we were not varsity. And so I can't underscore the importance of Title IX enough. And I just want to dive into that a little bit. The fact that for the current students to fathom that we, as Steffi said, We had to get our own vans out of the van pool. Steffi and X, everybody had to drive the van. But the hardest part was we would drive to the University of Delaware. I mean, I think that was 4 hours round trip. We had no access to a locker room. We had no access to like any kind of formal bathroom area. Every single game we played without a shower for the ride home. It was disgusting. I mean, we smelled so nasty. I mean, that's why we're all like have so much respect for each other, because we would go out and play the hardest game. You know how muddy and sweaty and dirty you got, and then to drive 4 hours home. So I always like to tell people that you have no idea what it was like, because we must have really loved this game and loved this team, because what we did, I mean, I consider that a sacrifice, because the men did not have to deal with that. And it was very frustrating. I think that's the word that comes to mind. But we persevered, and those road trips are one of the things I remember the most, those long, dark. Can you hear me, Todd?
Yeah.
Sorry, it just interrupted me. So
You're good.
I was off on my road trip tangent. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to mention, which is sort of unusual, I happened to be the cub reporter of the team, because I was an English major, so I wrote for the Bucknellian. So I covered, I think, all of our games for all 4 years. So I have all the articles if anybody ever wants to see them. Can you still hear me okay, Todd? Is the audio okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. So, and another sidebar, I was driving out for my 25th reunion 4 years ago, and I had all of my soccer stuff for Todd and everyone, and sadly I was in a terrible car accident on the way to campus, and ended up in a creek about a half an hour from campus, but I still have all my, even though everything was ruined, my car went in the water, I still have it's soggy, and I dried it out, so I have all of my Bucknell soccer collection. I have photo albums, I have all the newspaper articles. So I have them somewhere, and I was going to try to pull them out for the call, but I wasn't able to do it because I'm moving. But I just wanted to say that for people that are interested in the history and the archives, it does exist, and it's all documented, because I wrote an article, I think, for every game that from 87 to 91. So I guess I feel that my teammates were incredibly fearless and strong and powerful and beautiful. I just felt that we were athletes, but we were women, and I learned so much from each of them. So that's what I remember most about my experience as a Bucknell women's soccer player.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Those memories, I laugh because the mods are still a very popular option for a lot of the women's soccer players, and every year we have a number of student athletes in the mods. So transitioning here just a little bit, when did the first conversations of elevating the program to varsity level begin, and how did they come about?
I might defer more to those behind, because they came in earnest. They definitely started when I think it was probably my sophomore or junior year. I think Nina and I were really trying to push it forward, and a lot of the issues revolved around, well, we're part of a league, so if Lehigh and Lafayette only have club teams at this point, we need to have everybody kind of move together. So there was a lot of work that needed to be done behind the scenes. And of course, we were kind of pushing on the front still, just trying to say, if there's just a way to have that status without being part of the league, and, there are all sorts of, I am sure, charters and everything else that you have to meet all the rules of. But it was interesting to try and push that up. And again, the gentleman, gosh, I cannot believe I can't remember this guy's name from the CAF. He was really helpful in helping us navigate sort of to the people that we needed to talk to. But it seemed as if we were starting to advocate for ourselves and really, push this forward. And I think having some success, having real schedules, having, moments like we had at Penn State, said, this is possibly a selling point for the university. You have another team that could really easily be successful and draw a lot of students here that are also, scholar athletes, and who would not want to do that? But I'll leave it more to those that came behind me that actually saw maybe the wheels start actually moving. Nina would probably be a great person to follow up with at some point if somebody wants to remember that little transition, because it was sort of, I was in this class, then Nina, and then, you know, folks from the next class down. So, and so I defer to them to maybe give a little bit more of a description of what it was really like to watch that transition.
So Nina passed the baton to me, and I'm not scared of athletic directors. And Jen Thacker was my co-captain. She was a year older than me, so she was Nina's age. And we made an appointment with the athletic director, and we said, how do you make a varsity sport? We had no idea. Like, we had no idea. And the athletic director at the time was nice to us, probably because maybe he knew my dad. I have no idea. But he gave us a blueprint of what kind of proposal to write. And we actually, Jen and I wrote the proposal, and it had to go up through faculty council. We thought we'd never hear from them again. This was spring of my junior year. And they called me into faculty council. And I think Jen she might have already been on the graduation path because she couldn't go. I had to go alone. And I was sitting in this group of faculty. I didn't know I wanted to be a professor yet. I was a junior. I had no idea what I wanted to be. And I think the majority of them were men, and one was a male econ professor who looked at me and he goes, "This is ridiculous. Why do we need another female sport?" I was like, wow. I didn't expect that. I did not expect him to be so hostile to a student coming in with a proposal. So I got kind of mad, and I don't know what I said. But I said, why wouldn't you? You know, it's not an expensive sport. We're a winning team. We have schedules. We do everything. This is, you know, what we do, because we knew what we did. And sure enough, I believe it was that spring, we knew that fall that it was going to be varsity the next year, that the proposal was approved. It was kind of harrowing and it was kind of surprising. I give Jen a lot of credit because she was somebody else who was behind the scenes. In writing the proposal and helping put it together. And I have no idea why I had to go in there alone. I would have preferred not to. And I think that professor, you know, and many great professors as I had at Bucknell that drove me to become a professor, was also one of the reasons I became a professor, because I was like, this is just not right. Professors shouldn't be not open to what students are trying to say or do. And so I learned a lot from the experience, but I was hoping it would be more positive all the way through, and that was a sort of showstopper.
Yeah, that was an interesting time for us. I remember, so then I guess it was the end of sophomore year for me, whenever we chose our captains, that Steffi and I were chosen as the next year's captains. So I clearly remember a day that Steffi, that you walked up to me and you said, "This is now our job." And you showed me this proposal that you had in paper. And I was like, what is that? First of all, we had to go through all the other stuff of like making our schedule, you know, securing the vans, getting the box lunches, everything else. But then you're like, this is really our job. And you told me about you and Jen writing this proposal and that now we have to push it through. And I do remember, it's a little vague to me, but I remember going to meetings with you. I don't remember being in a meeting with somebody shooting us down yet. That happened to me and Dana later. But you and I must have gone to some meetings that spring. And then we had fall season where we were a club. That was my junior year. And then at the end of that year, I remember Dana and I became the senior captains for the following year. And that, you know, you kind of had passed the baton to us and said, keep it going. And I remember we were going to several meetings and our sponsor, the cafeteria guy, who was amazing, was helping as much as he could. And we got blindsided at one of the final meetings where they said this wasn't going to happen. And they couldn't give us a reason why. And in truth, I think it was a budgetary issue for that year. And Dana and I were like, all right. So we pushed it back another year. And Dana's mom got on the phone with us and she said, absolutely not. She said, this is a Title IX claim that you guys have to stand up for. And I don't know if she made a call or we made a call, but that was it. And the next thing you know, women's crew and women's soccer became varsity that year. And unfortunately, I think they had to drop a men's sport. It might have been men's crew to make the teams even in the varsity level. So
wrestling.
Yeah, I was going to say wrestling.
I got some
pushback. Wrestling? Okay. Yeah. So, you know, it took couple years, right? Steffi, you were working on it for a year and a half. You helped me and we did it together, and then Dana and I finished, but Dana's mom really finished it, which was great.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about Title IX. I mean, I know about Title IX now as a dean because of harassment and all the bad things, but I didn't know, surprisingly, I know all the good things Title IX did for women's athletic, but we should, I mean, that should have been part of the proposal.
Right.
I think it's been that edge. That's how old we are. That
Yeah, we were on the cusp there. Pre-internet.
But I remember also our senior year that they had hired a coach and everything, and that somebody was coming up and scouting and watching you guys. It felt kind of bad, you know, trying to check out who would actually play on the varsity team. And
well, he was the assistant men's coach who became our first varsity coach. So he was just moving from one field to the other to watch us. But yeah, he didn't make any cuts, I don't think. Did he, Kyra? We were all there. But then he started recruiting his own.
Not officially.
I think, not officially. Yeah. He did start recruiting his own afterwards. So some of the people caught in between years were didn't get as great of a playing experience as we had.
All set, X?
All set.
So I'll just pivot a little because I was not as much a part of the transition to varsity, but one thing that we haven't mentioned as much that I think was an important part of those 3 years that I was there before we were varsity and then the transition, one thing that just sustained us was our incredible commitment from our volunteer coaches, which they referred to Mike and Eric, who were there when I was a freshman, and then David Case, who was the most committed person who was with us the entire way. I think he started as maybe our goalie coach when we were freshmen. Dave was class of 91, and he was with us, I mean, pretty much all 4 years. I assume he was with us even when we went varsity to some extent on the sidelines there. But I mean, the commitment that those guys made to our team for that entire time that we were a club sport. I mean, obviously it was just Eric and Mike, our freshman year ex, but Dave Case for being with us for the long haul. And the words I wrote down were, it was more pure and it was more simple when we were a club, even though of course the club had to become varsity and of course we had to achieve that status because we deserved it. And you know, one thing that I remember is I always took heart that even Penn State was club. I mean, it wasn't just us, it was everyone. Every women's soccer team that we were playing, I believe, was club. And so we were all fighting the same uphill battle. So thank you to those who fought that fight for us. But I have very bittersweet memories of the transition to varsity. It wasn't a good transition for me as a player, which is why I made that comment, not officially, but I had a tremendous personality conflict with our coach, our first coach as varsity, and he just didn't play me. So it was a very tough way to end my career at Bucknell as a Bucknell soccer player. I mean, I played sometimes, but it changed dramatically. And the reality is, we came in as club, and some of us were really good, and I was not one of those really good players. So I had a lot of heart, and I was very committed. But you know, some people are just more skilled, and I just wasn't in that category. So for some of us that played in those early years wouldn't obviously be able to play, wouldn't be recruited now, and that's just a fact. But so it was hard, but I think that's a life lesson that you learn. You know, things change, and just like in your job, you know, you'll get a new boss and it'll be challenging, and that's sort of what happened to me. I went from Dave, who was my friend and my buddy and my coach, to somebody who just didn't appreciate my skills or my abilities. So or my heart, I guess, is that was the best part of my soccer skills. But so that's sort of how I remember the transition. It wasn't as a positive experience for me, but it had to happen and we needed to happen. Thank you.
Just if I can interject there, Kyra, when Todd was asking me about which people would be available or might be interested in doing this talk, when I described you, I said you were the heart of the team. So yeah, I don't even remember how much you played or didn't play. I remember your heart. And that was really what you contributed to all of us.
So just jumping into that first season of varsity. So this question is just for from what I understand, CA and Steffi, you guys did not have a chance because you had graduated, but what was the feeling like playing Bucknell's first ever varsity contest in 1990? And what does it mean that you were part of the school's first Division I victory, which in case you don't remember, maybe you do, was a 5-0 shutout over Wilkes?
I guess I start on that one. I actually do not remember our first game. I remember it all as like a big cloud of still fun. But I don't remember the specific game. I remember how nice it was that we were now being taken care of, that we didn't have to worry so much about the details anymore. So our field was already ours. I didn't have to call Steffi or CA. They didn't have to call and reserve a field. You know, we had uniforms. We had 2 different color uniforms. We had locker rooms. Our coach had us run through the rain and mud one time and walk through that locker room with piles of mud, and he took the blame for it. So it was just a different, it was a different sense of responsibility, maybe a little bit more fun for us with less to worry about. But we also had the same feeling as Kyra was a little bit describing. We had student coaches all along who were incredibly committed. And when we suddenly got a varsity coach who was used to coaching men, we did have a lot of discussions about what's the best strategy to get the best out of women athletes. And I remember talking to him about women don't do well scrimmaging each other for a majority of the practice. We need drills, we need skill development, but we're not gonna play our hardest against our friend and make them look bad. It's just not a girl thing to do. And so while it is very useful to scrimmage, it is not the best productive way to get the most out of your team to do that for an hour. And so I think that, and we had negotiated for the old student coaches to be assistants. And so they did get a role in our coaching process, but they too, I think, were not quite as vocal as they would have been had we been club. So it was a little bit more of a learning process of the hierarchy of things, of the formality of things. And you know, the pressure was off on having to organize it, but we still were playing the same schedule, the same high level teams that we had always been playing. So I don't think that making it varsity to me was the jump in the level of play. It was simply a change in the organization of it. Go ahead, Kara.
Thanks. If you lose my video, it's because of technology issues, but I'll be back. So one thing that I remember, X, I think this is correct, that we actually moved to the big field by the field house, right? So we got to play there all the time, which was a first for us. Yeah. So that was exciting. And it was a lot easier to recruit your friends to come watch your game because we weren't playing out at the mods, because that was a big deterrent to get people to go all the way out to the mods. It was challenging. So we did feel like we'd made it to the big game. Like it's like if you'd been in a minor league baseball team and then you got brought up to the majors. Is that a good analogy, X? It was just all of a sudden we were in the limelight and we were a little more like the real deal, and we had credibility, and so it felt great, but it felt so strange. It like not uncomfortable, but just unique. And I'm so glad X just mentioned that, because about the scrimmaging, because there was unfortunately an incident where so I was a right fullback my entire career, and I'm not very good at being mean or aggressive, and there were times when, you know, if I took someone out in a game, you know, I would help the person up, or I would apologize, "Are you okay?" And my coach did not like that at all. So so he actually took me aside, I think at one point, and said, "You're not aggressive enough, you're not assertive enough, you need to be tougher." And so we were in one of those scrimmages in our practice, and he had our goalie on the field, and unfortunately I took her out because he wanted me to be tougher, and I blew out her knee, it turns out. It was just a freak accident, and it was horrible. And that's how I remember my senior year, unfortunately, was that horrible accident, and the pressure I felt to be tougher and to play the game that he wanted me to play. And it just, I would say that the lesson there is to thine own self be true, and don't try to be what somebody else wants you to be. But when you're 21, you know, and you have this this authority figure, just and you're trying to do what it takes to get the job done. And I think I was just devastated that happened. So that was really unfortunate. So I don't remember our first games as varsity team players, but it was a glorious time, and I was very proud to be a part of our transition to varsity. Thanks.
I'm going to turn it over first to Sarah for a question.
So the next question is, who was the teammate you admired most throughout your career at Bucknell, and why?
I think I might go back to Heidi Neff, just because she was this tiny little like waif of a thing. I mean, she couldn't have been 100 pounds soaking wet. And she was absolutely fearless. I just couldn't, she would just come out of the net and just track down anyone that was within her orbit. And I just think of some of the things that we asked her to do in that. And I think Mike and Eric were great in coaching her. She was the class above me, so some of these folks would have only had a limited exposure to her. But, she just kind of threw caution to the wind. And I just feel like she was somebody who always she just tried her best, and she forgave herself when she didn't do things right, but she was right back in there the next day trying to fix whatever she might have been able to fix. And I feel like she was, I've never been a goalie, but I just always, my heart goes out to them. I've coached through, my years as a teacher, and just, it's the one position where you just can feel the worst for, because they're often in those moments that make or break, or seem to, even though obviously it's the whole team that's allowed that ball maybe to get to the place where it's come to make or break. And so I think looking back on her, I really think about her a lot in terms of how she approached what she was doing, and how she always was able to really, I think, forgive herself and be like, I'm just going to get it the next time, and was able to kind of let some of that come off of her, which I think a lot of players can't and don't, even in field positions, right? You miss a penalty kick, or so that's who I think of.
So I had three: Sue Smith, who was a defender, and she brought all the Madonna music to practice; Amy Faust, who played right wing or left wing, and just would feed the ball to her, and she could cross the ball a mile and a quarter; and Margaret Young, who was a real leader on the team. She played sweeper, and she could see the field. She fed everybody the ball. She was a real team leader. She went abroad senior year, so did Sue, and Amy got injured. But they were just, I played with them since freshman year, and they were just a ball and always fun to be with.
My player that I admire the most actually is CA. Sorry to embarrass you. I just remember, again, freshman experience, going out in the field, you're the captain, and just watching your very elegant, casual style of leadership, that you weren't screaming and yelling at anybody, you weren't rah-rah, you did it by example, you did it by your quiet leadership talks, and I really appreciated that. And I've always felt like the leader on the team and the best player on the team really is the one that makes everybody else around them look the best that they can be. And you really did that, CA. I thought you were a fantastic teammate, leader, and friend.
Well, thank you. See, I don't need to put on any blush.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I know you just hated that whole thing, but I had to do it.
Next time I see you, my friend, in person, I know right? You live and you're not that far away. So I may be on your doorstep in about 30 minutes.
Oh gosh, lock the doors.
So Sarah, if it's okay with you, if you'll indulge me, I'm going to pivot a little. I will answer the question in one word. My teammate that I admire the most is X, because of her leadership then, her leadership now. She's continued that role post, our time at Bucknell. So that is my heartfelt word. X was the teammate I admired the most. But I just want to pivot slightly, because CA was, I believe, a senior when I was a freshman, and I guess I don't even know how we maintained the connection, CA, and we haven't talked in years and years and years. But what ended up happening, Sarah has a question related to networking after Bucknell. And my dream was to work for the Environmental Protection Agency, and I ended up working in consulting before I was able to go back to graduate school to pursue that dream. And sometime in those intervening years, either the 4 years I was in consulting or as I was about to go to grad school, CA was at EPA working and took me under her wing and took me around the agency for the day, I believe, if I remember correctly. I mean, this was 20 years ago, over 20 years ago. And it made such an impression, CA, on me. And I emailed her in the past week when Todd was setting up this call. And I said, CA, would you believe I'm still at the Environmental Protection Agency after 23 years? And part of it was CA showing me the agency from her perspective. And it's been my dream job, my dream career. And to think that I had a fellow teammate who was able to introduce me to the place that I would, grow into as a environmental professional for decades is just remarkable. So don't underestimate the power of networking, even within our own team, not just within the university. Thanks.
That transitioned perfectly into my next question here. If you guys could give us an update on your personal life, where you live currently, career, family, any updates you can share with us, and that will then transition nicely into Sarah's next question that she's got for you. So I'll let you guys, CA, get us started here.
So I'm currently working at Georgetown Day School in Washington, D.C. I live in Chevy Chase, Maryland. And no, it was not named after the actor. I get that question all the time when I'm ordering something on the phone. So I'm a high school science teacher. I have coached there. I've been there for 20 plus years. It's my dream job. I could not be at a better school, a better place. It was the first integrated school in Washington, D.C., and has really stayed true to that mission in terms of social justice and tolerance and equity and diversity. And so clearly in these moments, it's a great place to be because it sort of already wrestles daily with this and these topics as part of it's been doing it for years and years and years. And so we are not perfect by any means, but it is a wonderful place to be, particularly in a time like we're seeing now. And it's been my perfect place. I've done coaching. I've done some admissions work on the side. I've been a department chair. I was somehow talked into being the principal for 5 years, which I'm so excited I'm not anymore. As much as I loved it, I just miss the kids. I miss the kids way too much. I just love teaching and being in the classroom with kids and coaching and taking kids on outdoor trips. And so it's been my love, and I couldn't be more passionate about the school or about the job of teaching. So I love talking to people about being teachers, coaches. So love to invite anyone to get in touch with me about that career path. I also did work at the Environmental Protection Agency right out of grad school for a couple of years. And then I moved on to a nonprofit think tank called Resources for the Future, which was also a wonderful experience. But it's amazing how, as disparate as parts might feel of your life, it's incredible when you get to this age, you really start seeing the through lines and the path, and the steps that you take are really building towards something. And just be confident when you take a step. You will be just treading down a path that was meant to be. Just trust me.
So I went and got my PhD at Yale after Bucknell and became a sociologist, and with a joint appointment in psychiatry, first at UConn, then at UMass Boston and UMass Medical School there for 20 plus years. Now the dean at Wayne State in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. It's the largest college at Wayne State. Tons of students, tons of faculty. I'm actually teaching this summer. I'm teaching drugs in society. My research expertise, and that's online, of course, but I love being with the students too. My research expertise is urban social problems, social justice, gun violence, mental health in prisons. I have 2 beautiful daughters, an amazing husband. We're all home together, but I haven't seen my children all day long today. I have no idea where they are. One's 13. She bikes everywhere, and one's 16. And I'm very proud of the 16-year-old. They're both excellent ice hockey players and lacrosse players. My 16-year-old was named one of the top 150 lacrosse players in the country for her graduation year. She's a 2023 and she's going Under Armour 150. So I'm really, really proud of her. I'm proud of the legacy of athletics in my family. So I was, glad that I got to experience that at Bucknell too. And we have a couple dogs and a cat, and we live just outside of Detroit.
So I went on to grad school after Bucknell as well. I went to Hahnemann University, which is now part of Drexel, for medical school. Graduated from there and went to Georgetown residency program. And again, jumping ahead to the legacy help that you get from your connections. Eric Anderson was our coach when I was a freshman. So he was in your class, CA and Todd. And he was already kind of ahead of me in the same path, and he had gone to Hahnemann and actually to Georgetown, and I sort of followed him along. And it was him that told me that I should really think about going into medicine, not going into research or whatever I was thinking at the time. So I have, a Bucknellian to thank also for my career path that did mesh, as you say, CA. So I went to Georgetown residency, internal medicine, and then I've been working in internal medicine private practice for the last 22 years. I've just joined a new group in the past year, which has been a really great move for me. And we are opening our brand new office on August 4th, really close to home, and really great practice, really great leadership. So I'm super excited for the rest of my career in medicine. But, a lot of other parts of life are what make things happy as well. And so I have a great husband, 14-year-old son who is a rising freshman in high school. Baseball player. So we're really committed to athletics as well, spending our weekends traveling and all the things you have to do. But he's got good potential, and so we're encouraging it. My family is all healthy and good. Nobody has had coronavirus yet, so we're all pretty happy. Oh, actually, I lie. One sister-in-law had a very mild case, so she had the dream case. But yeah, we are all doing well, and this DC area is full of Bucknellians, so you see stickers everywhere, and it makes me smile every time I see them. It's definitely a happy time in my life, and one that I'd like to see that other people shared and are proud of as well.
Oh, it's so nice. So I mentioned my career. I am a scientist and policy wonk at the Environmental Protection Agency. My expertise, I work nationally on drinking water issues. So my official job is to protect 4,000 drinking water supplies in New England from contamination, so prevention in the medical terminology. So I don't do any kind of enforcement or regulatory work, but I work in partnership and work on a lot of teams. And my time as a soccer player has certainly paid off in all the teamwork that I experience every day in my work. And I love my job. I'm just so lucky to have my dream job. So I work in the Boston office. I live in Boston. I am looking out at the harbor right now and a beautiful sunset here in the city of Boston. I surprisingly am buying a house, or just bought a house last week after living in a beautiful condo for 22 years. And I bought that beautiful house with my boyfriend of 7 years, and we're super happy. It's a meticulously restored 1895 Victorian in just outside of the city. So that's been really great for me. And I wasn't able to have children, unfortunately, but I have a lot of young people in my life that I mentor, and I feel incredibly fulfilled in that way. And I turned 50 last year, which I assume X did as well. And my advice to all the women out there who are watching this is, I played competitive soccer for 15 years after school, and then life and work got in the way, and I got really out of shape. So I have an incredible personal trainer. I lost 50 pounds in the past year and a half, and I feel like I'm in the best shape of my life, which is amazing at 51. But my advice is don't let your physical fitness go because you're busy in your 30s, because it's really easy to do that when you're getting your career established. So my advice is keep up your fitness regimen, because it will serve you well for the rest of your life. So I'm super happy and just thrilled to be a part of this, and I assume Todd and Kelly will give our contact information to all of the student athletes watching this, because we'd love to be a resource to you as Bucknellians as well as fellow soccer players. Thanks.
You have a great way of segmenting for me right into the next question. So I'm going to let Sarah ask her networking question to you guys.
Yeah, so you guys touched on it a little bit already. Thank you for that. So I am going to be graduating, so this question will be useful for me. So what advice do you have about networking and finding a job after college?
So here's what I'd love to do, only because I feel like I'm talking a lot at the beginning, and then maybe people are able to just add on because I've said what they would maybe have said too. So maybe if we reverse the order, or
Sure.
something else, how about that?
Great, DA. Being a leader.
That's so cool. So I'm a huge fan of networking. It's a big part of my life. I spend a tremendous amount of time mentoring young people with their careers. As I mentioned, I went to Duke for graduate school, so I'm on the board of directors at my school, at the Nicholas School of the Environment. So this COVID experience has really brought to a head the importance of networking, and I must admit that I'm not as connected or plugged into the Bucknell networking, but I'd be happy to be a resource. So Sarah, to answer your question, especially, I mean, we don't know where we'll be, right, in 9 months when you graduate, but I would say that I'm old school. I'm super old school when it comes to networking. I believe you can start with an email, but follow up with a phone call, because people are so busy and your emails will get buried. And don't think that you're bothering someone, because we want to hear from you. And as CA mentioned, she alluded to it, at this stage in our life, we just want to be of assistance. And I work in public service, and that's a big part of my ethos, is how do I help other people? So I think my best advice, Sarah, to you and all the other student athletes is, just be tough, be just like you would be on the field. Like, you just have to really be proactive. You have to go for, it's like scoring. Like, remember that, you miss every shot you don't take. And I would say the same thing can be said for networking. You just have to put yourself out there. And I know you feel really vulnerable when you're calling up a stranger you've never met. And then the most important piece of advice I give to everyone that I counsel on job searches is send a handwritten thank you note, because nobody does that anymore. And I actually recommend you use a photo and you get Shutterfly cards made, and you send them to people with your contact information, because guess what they do? They put that card at their desk and they see it every time they look up from their computer. So that has worked wonders for the people that I network. So that's my advice.
That was a really good one, Kyra. I like that. Yeah, I mean, along those lines, I do, again, we're old school. We do like the personal touch. So email is one way to get in the door. Text is one way to get in the door. But we like to hear the voice. We like to see the person even, and definitely like that handwritten note. I think that the most important thing is to have confidence in yourself when you leave Bucknell, and know that you're well prepared, that Bucknell has really given you a foundation that is well above and beyond what a lot of people are receiving. And even when you have that, though, don't be afraid to start at the bottom of the rung and work your way up. A lot of people feel like they are entitled to a job that is above what their experience level might be. Don't be afraid to start at the bottom, because a good leader is going to see your skills wherever you are, and they're going to pull you up with them. And as Kyra says, it's our job later to be that person for our fellow comrades out there. And if I see somebody who's applying for a job, whether it be medicine or nursing, if I see that they played a sport in college, that's already right up there for me. They have those skills to be team players. So that's already boosting them in the pile I want to talk to. But then, top that off with Bucknell, I'm definitely talking to that person, and I'm definitely doing the best I can to help them. But it's just kind of a feeling you have of camaraderie with people who came from where your roots are too. So be confident in yourself, but also use your skills and your personality and get in front of a person, not just all by text or email.
So I would recommend don't do it alone. Don't go it alone. Have a mentor, have a faculty person. It can be the same person who knows you, knows your story, knows your wants, knows your needs, has your back, writes your letters of reference, will have your back the rest of your life. I mean, I wouldn't have gotten anywhere without, I had a couple job opportunities after Bucknell. One was the first year for Teach for America, and the other was that I got into Yale, and my 3 social professors told me, and one of my dogs is barking, you need to go to Yale. And I felt so guilty because I was like all about doing social justice things. And I took their advice, and I'm still in contact with those professors today. And I have other faculty that have always mentored me and helped me along the way. So I do think it's important to have a mentor, and in that mentor being a college professor for you now, but as you move forward.
And I guess I was looking through some of the questions today just to be able to have wrap my mind around them a little bit before speaking tonight. And the number one thing I had under here was always write a personal thank you note. Just do it. I know it's laborious. You gotta do it. It takes time, and the person on the other end realizes, especially today, that you took the time. Okay, and I can guarantee that most of your peers will not take that time to do it. I think, and I love the idea of sending a picture card. That's brilliant. I think the other thing I would say is don't listen to everybody else. You know, if you are wanting to do something that you want to do, try to pursue it. And you want to ask anybody and everybody if they know somebody who either does what you think you want to do or just might do something related to it. And then when you open up those first calls, just try and ask for names, and you just want to explore, right? Sometimes people pick up a phone, they think, oh, this kid wants a job. I got to talk to him and tell him we don't have any spaces. But don't even mention that. You're just asking them questions about what they do and how did they get there. You really want to make sure you're asking that question, because they will then maybe start unraveling all sorts of avenues you hadn't even thought of. I think the other is you really, really just do want to find your first step and know that it may not be the perfect step, but it's experience. And every experience is going to lead you to either saying, whoa, this is not what I want to do, or wow, I really want to do X, and to get there I have to do this first. And just be patient. It's unlikely that you're going to have your perfect job right out the door. But what you will have is a perfect moment to have experience to then move that towards where you want to go next. And everybody you meet, I don't care if it's the guy on the metro, which I don't know when we're going to be riding the metro next, but just somebody in your world, just start talking to them. It's amazing. The guy in the grocery store line, I always consider somebody whose story I'm not getting or trying to engage with, to me, that goes in the lost column. That's a loss. You know, to meet other people, absorb other people. And so this is maybe getting a little bit bigger picture, but it's amazing how many of those little moments can possibly lead to you having a real conversation with someone at the coffee shop, at the table next to you. And the next thing you know, he's writing down a phone number for you to call. So just don't be shy. I know I teach high school kids. I know you're older than high school kids, but I can tell you your collection generation seems very shy to reach out and just talk to a stranger. And you don't like the phone, I get it. You like to text, use the phone and actually invite people into your world. Anybody that's in your orbit, ask them, how are you doing? You're going to look like a freak from time to time. Sure enough, somebody's going to be like, why is this person even trying to engage me in a conversation? I'm just trying to get my coffee here. Just do it. And, 1 out of 50 of those, let's say it's even that bad an average, guess what? That one will actually launch you somewhere. So just don't miss those opportunities. And even if they don't take you to your job, they're an enriching experience where you've gotten to know another person. You'll get much better at being able to have conversations if you practice them. So I guess those are my thoughts.
You guys.
Awesome. That was some great advice, and I look forward to our student athletes viewing this session, because I think you guys brought up a lot of really great things that I hope that they take, and I know Sarah will. I know what kind of person Sarah is. She'll be writing that handwritten note for sure. But now, kind of on the topic of advice, our final question: what advice do you have for me, the current head coach of the Bucknell women's soccer program? And we'll go in the reverse order again, just to keep it keep going with that.
Well, this is thanks, Kelly. Thank you, Coach. I feel like the best thing, I mean, I can't tell you how to coach your women because you're fantastic. And I would say I love the connections and I love the emails. And I don't know if this happened at one point, but I would love to be matched with a current student athlete. And I would love it if our alumni were asked to be mentors, you know, professional mentors, and to see if we could set up some sort of program, which may have existed in the past, but I know you do a really good job keeping us up to date on the schedules. And I love going to the Holy Cross games when you have games at Holy Cross and I can see the women. And oh, and you played at BU. I think that was a year and a half ago. And I love that. It was just so exciting. But I just would love to be more connected to the women. Like if I could have a video chat with a student athlete that I get matched with as a mentor and could give advice on a regular basis throughout the school year, I think that'd be really amazing. And I'm so naive that I thought this call tonight, I just never really put it all together. I thought they were going to be with us on the call. So if you guys have the bandwidth for that, I would love it if we could do a call with the students on the phone, with the student athletes on the phone, so they can ask us their questions live.
Yeah,
so that's my advice, Coach.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We don't currently have a mentoring program, but we definitely have the capabilities to kind of collect information and, you know, and find out. I think it would be awesome if we paired based on interests. And I know we have some environmental studies majors and interest there. So that would be an awesome opportunity, something we'll definitely look into.
Thank you, Coach.
Yeah, I agree. I think you've done such a tremendous job with the group that I've met on occasion when you've been here in DC or I've been at Bucknell. I think you do a great job of advertising for us and letting us know when your schedule is coming to our area. And you've been so welcoming whenever you've seen me at a game in DC at Georgetown or GW, wherever you were, to like have me come down and say hi to any of the players. I've met some of the parents on the stadium seats, and it's always really it's a nice crew. You've built a group of ladies that seem very full of life and personality and drive. You see that on the field. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't know what to say for you to do better. I know that what I see that's frustrating on my son's teams as they are getting better is, and my niece's soccer teams, there's a certain time where good try is no longer something good. Good try is like saying, you know, they were nice. So at some point, people have to become responsible for finalizing a play, for finalizing the pass and the goal. And just winning the 50-50 ball was not enough. That was great. You look great doing it. But you got to finish it, and finish it because now your team is moving forward and they're wasting energy, and you better not waste that whole trip down the field on a bad cross. So anything that you can do to inspire the thought process of finishing it, you know, is positive. And I think you do that. But that would be my one thing I see in juvenile sports out here as well.
In my book, there's very few shots that are nice, because it wouldn't be a shot if it was that nice. It would be a goal.
Right.
So.
It would be a goal. I'm with you. Comes a level where you got to finish it. Yeah.
Well, you just have to send all your graduates out to me in Detroit, and I'll put them in graduate programs that, you know, we have an awesome environmental science program. If you want to study the environment and pollution and issues, you come to Detroit. You'll cut your teeth in a good place. I think that the only piece of advice I'd ever give to another coach or another teacher or professor is learn to enjoy your students and learn from them. If you have fun with them and you're willing to open your mind and learn from them, it will be a successful season. It will be a successful relationship.
That's great. I'd love to echo that, and maybe just in a short phrase, like, and I think you know this because I've watched the trajectory of this team, and even if it's from afar and I haven't been able to make as many things as I'd like to in person, it's, you know, again, I know it's a varsity sport, D1 school, but it's you're probably going to be like, no, do not listen to this woman. It's not about the wins, right? You're not trying to build perfect 19, 20, 21, 22-year-olds, what you're really trying to do is instill them in them, and coaches are often the ones that do, the sort of well-adjusted, wonderful 35-year-old. And so I maybe put that out there as something to think about, because I think in a game and in what you are tasked to do as a coach at a university with a major program with a lot of eyes on it, you know, we're supposed to have this really successful program, and you have. So you've already kind of checked that box. But just in that day-to-day, learning from your players, as Steffi said, and stepping back and realizing this is just part of their journey. And then again, where are they 10 years from now? And I can guarantee you, I remember my really good coaches. I still hear from a number of my players. I think that relationship is so important. And I think you put into it what I think these young women are so lucky to get. And so I'm very grateful for you to be at the helm of this program, because I think you've done a wonderful job.
Thank you for that. And that wraps up our final question. And I think I know I got a lot out of this call, and just those words from you guys that really hit home. I'm always looking to grow as a coach and find opportunities to continue to improve myself and improve the student athlete experience at Bucknell, which is my number one priority, is their experience and preparing them for what's next. But I want to take a minute and thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to get on another Zoom call, because I'm sure you haven't been Zooming enough. But it means a lot. It just shows the strength of this Bucknell program, whether you were a club, varsity. In my eyes, you wore the jersey that said the name on the shirt, and it doesn't matter what the status of the program was at the time. But the fact that you have the passion and commitment to return and help our current students with your words and offering your wisdom and advice, I can't say thank you enough, and just really appreciate and really enjoyed tonight's call, and hope to continue our relationships and see you guys, whether it's at Bucknell or wherever city. I don't know about Detroit, if we're going to make it up there, but we'll look into it. But get into a city or an area where a reunion and get to meet face to face and continue some of these great conversations. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just echoing on that, I just wanted to thank you guys as well. It's always so great to hear from alum who had similar experience to mine. I would not be the person I am without the Bucknell soccer program. So it's so great to hear that you guys have had similar experiences, and your love of the game is truly inspiring. So thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day for this.
And I'll chime in as the last one, and I'll thank each of you as well. And first, I'll start with you, Sarah. Thanks for taking the time out of your schedule to be on the call tonight. And these great comments that were made, I'm sure a lot of them you can take and relay to your teammates, because there was a lot of great advice given from the women that really, truly started the Bucknell women's soccer program here. And it's fantastic to hear that story. It's great to see all of you. And I would definitely encourage you, if you know the team's coming into your area, to reach out to and ask her if you can be a sideline coach. I don't know how involved her program is with the sideline program, but a lot of our coaches in our programs have alums on the sideline. So if they're coming into your area, that might be something you guys might want to consider. And X, if you're doing that, you got to make sure if it's at American, you keep your husband on the American.
I know, right?
Right.
You're on the Bucknell side.
Absolutely. They don't have
All
a baseball team. We got to stop cheering for them.
There you go. All right. Well, again, thank you, ladies. And for those of you watching at home, thank you for tuning in, and go Bison.